Okay, guys, so I had a few requests as far as turning up the microphone. That was kind of cool. So, what we're going to do here is I'll go through quickly. This is not going to be quick, but I'll try. What happened with my backstory of choosing an ECU for my own car, the process of doing so, and kind of how I landed on Imtron for myself, and realistically what happened in the time frames and what went down. So, first off, I was going to go with Adaptronic as a start. This is back in like the E440D days. I was definitely sold on the marketing and all this stuff, and I went through the Rotary software, which I'm not sure if you guys ever saw this. Maybe I still have it on here. Oh, shoot. Yeah, it's right here. Let's take a look. It was a loaded file. Let's see what I can find here. We'll just do like a... There we go. Something like that. So, this is something like what I was introduction for ECU and configuration, and overall it's not a terrible software. It's got a few nice features and has very basic stuff and staging and speed control. This is originally what I was going to be getting into, and then as the announcement of the M6000 came out, which was their top tier, I think still is their top tier after the Sikuku or whatever it's called, this was going to be supposed to be like one of the first people in the US to get one of these ECUs, and I was real excited about that. And the more and more I look back, I'm like, wow, I would have been pretty fucking pissed off, because even reading a simple Greg Banish book or talking to some people in the EFI community, you'll know right away, like, smart people don't use shitty systems. I know quite a few people that will tune only on AEM or only on Motec or whatever it is that their system and their workflow is. Okay, so I made this thread back in, when was this? It might have been 2018, yeah. April 2018, and this is kind of after I'd already purchased the ECU. I'd seen Nick and the boys over at I think it was SEMA. Shit, that was a great year. Definitely had a good party. They had me known as the American, which I will take that, and I will fucking party my ass off every time of the day. That's just a week-long party over there. Anyway, so I went over this stuff, and before deciding on this, I had gone through the software of every single ECU in the market at the time, and I went through price breakdowns and talked to various tuners of each one, and kind of I got my own understanding of consumer grade, and I created and classified what I call consumer grade and motorsports grade ECUs. So I went through this whole thing, found out, like, if you cheap out on any brand, you're going to get some metric shitstorm of a software. That could be the case. Sometimes you get lucky with companies like Imtron, where the software of the SL4 is the same as the software as the KV16. So that's amazing. And then you have stuff like Motec, where you pay to play, and that's going to be very much you're getting like M1 build, development options, stuff like that, which the software packaging and the custom packaging of people that will make packages, I'm trying to think, like Chris Delgado and Pack and companies out there that will make custom packages for your application, whether it's some Viper or some Rotary or wherever it is. That's kind of the M1 Motec way, right? And you have like the gold boxes, the M800, M400, that type of stuff. I mean, you'll probably have heard of Shane T, who's just world-class tuner, amazing guy. And then you've got like AEM stuff is Tony Zerka, incredible guy. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be here. And then Paul Yah, who got me into all this, isn't exactly a tuner, but that's who I got to connect all these people with. Really got me thinking as far as pushing myself and intellectual balance and stuff like that. But anyways, so I went through this whole thing, and I played around trying to create a rotary base map for myself in every single ECU. And shit, this is 2018 and I'm laughing at the PFC stuff right here. Link has really stepped up, I think, with the G4X. And whatever reason, I had this installation for that firmware was super buggy. I had it as number 2 as consumer grade. It is still that to me. It's right behind Haltech and a very, very close second. Honestly, everything that I wrote here I still agree with. Except for now, I think FuelTech has flex fuel. Microtech, it's reliable for a few seconds at a time. Too simple to be terrible, just avoid it. Cyvex, incredibly powerful interface, but it's all layered and it's all based on like base value. So if you mess up an arbitrary base value and they're multiplied between tables, you're kind of doing a lot of guessing and checking throughout as you're tuning the software. It's a little bit tiresome, especially on the eyes. Yeah, I think this is a really good reference. I could link this, but you could see it right here. RX-7 Club, and then you just search Imtron, and this will pop right up. And then I went through and I had like all these attachments for, various information snippets for this and setting up the ECU. Then I even showed like, here's my crank setup, the fuel setup, fans, sensors, stuff like that. So the main principle of this video is before you go and purchase an ECU, the one thing I can always suggest to someone is drop in and start messing around with software and see what the workflow is for each one of them. Like the workflow for this is set up your trigger first, and then your analog sensors, and then fueling corrections, ignition corrections, stuff like that. That's the workflow, right? So you're going from tab to tab to tab. On Imtron, you're going to have your fuel tab in the tuning kind of come up first, but realistically you're going to start in configuration first, go through engine setups. So like this would be the displacement, the type of engine, maximum cranking RPM based on your starter, when to crank entry, so like you don't want false positives for this, and then firing order, banks, so on and so forth. And then you go through this, you set up all your fuel as far as injector characterization, staging, fuel density based on that fuel you're using, ignition channels and dwell tables. And then you go through like inputs, which is all your sensors and switches. And then you're going to go through functions, which are like your outputs, idle control, knock control, boost control, limiters for safeties, vehicle functions. So as you can tell, this is substantially above what we were just looking at for this, right? We're talking, well, the amount of man hours that it took to make this could have been like one man in a matter of a year or so, right? This looks like it took a team of geniuses about 5 years, and that's probably very close to what it is. I mean, I can do custom CAN bus transmission and receiving for data sets and have like integrated keypad, all the stuff that's from Imtron itself directly goes in through CAN bus. It is a full direct, and so does some of the OEM stuff from them. So we're developing more and more of this right now as far as sniffing out CAN bus stuff. Then it has integrated scope, and it has, you can turn off the cylinders and shit. So you could turn off the ignition, turn off the fuel, and you could see any of your drive time errors. So that's kind of a quick little overview of that. Then the logging is all like based on tune stuff. Engine health is going to have a set of parameters. I can open up a log and show you guys, but triggers, boost control, air mass, power and torque, knock, drive-by-wires, starting. So pretty much when you go and you load a log, most of this stuff will populate itself, depending on how you have it configured. And then you have, all sorts of stuff when it comes to like driver. This is one of the only ECUs I can think of where you can have like a logging video overlaying your data log. And you're also grabbing information from vehicle speed sensors, from the onboard telemetry, which is the G-force stuff. You can have all the GPS integrated into the ECU. And so let's say you have a steering input and you're watching this video and you're seeing like tire temp and all these different things coming into play. You're going to be able to see where you're having slip angle issues as far as like alignment configuration all through this logger. The amount of power this thing has is insane. Like this would honestly take me months to cover in detail, right? And it's fantastic to see some companies do this at this level. And I truly think that this is one of the best motorsport ECUs on the market. And then when it comes to stuff like, I don't know. I was seeing what time it is. 12 minutes. So when it comes to stuff like efficiency calculation for VE table, you can create something that's totally different than this. So if I want to change these axes to whatever, just click A. I can go to engine speed, or I can change it to efficiency calculation. I can change anything I want for my axes. So like load calculations for ignition, efficiency calculations for fuel. But I could do something that's somewhat of an alpha N setup or throttle mass flow setup, that's a whole nother huge video series by itself. Just how it's measuring air. This is to simplify what a VE table is. This is a modeled airflow calculation of the engine. So we're saying at, let's say, this point right here. Okay, there's a little pointer right here. At this point of 1000 RPM and efficiency calculation of 70. So let's say like that's maybe 70 kPa, right? That's not exactly correct because this is all scaled. But we're saying the engine is 64% volumetric efficient. So it's filling the cylinder 64% of its value, which is why when you're in boost, you'll see positive values over 100. And you'll see that as the engine falls off in efficiency due to RPM, this happens because of back pressure of the engine itself, right? So you have optimized fuel filling right here between 45 and 55 in this model, and then back pressure starts to create less filling. It's choking the motor as the engine revs further. That's what this is. That's why it's falling off. So it's kind of a quick little thing of that. Stuff like this, you could set up, lambda table, very common. And then you'll see stuff like an offset table. engine temperature versus pressure. This one you could set totally different. Like I said, any axis you can imagine. Injection timing, very important. So the workflow is very intuitive. It is a lot of layers, and you could do a lot of blending between tables, which this one has it all turned off. But it is incredibly intuitive when it comes to configuration. There's just a lot of it. So this is one of the ECUs where you could spend weeks setting up a base map. But when you get it down and you get a formula for how you are setting up a particular engine, you'll start it, and the tuning process is going to be incredibly quick. So stuff like transient looks very simple here. We'll go through like a clamp table, like, hey, we're only going to have 28% maximum percentage over your base fueling, and is a sensitivity table based on the change in throttle position versus manifold pressure of the engine. This being atmospheric, this being under vacuum, and these values being absolute. So, in other words, you're going to need more fueling when you are requesting more the rapidness of a change of pedal pressure and low map pressure or high vacuum. You're going to need more fueling here versus when you're already moving and the engine's moving, it's not going to need as much. And then we can go through stuff like cylinder trim, Z-axis setup. So I can set up axis of flex fuel and charge temperature and everything else, all based on this. And the reason why this is grayed out is because you go down to this fuel table control. You could say, I want this to be on a Z-axis, so I click 6. Now it's on a Z-axis, so I go through fuel. Now I've got 1, 2, and 3. Then I go here to my fuel table setup, and now this can be 1 to 3. Do this linearization, and there you go. So now when ethanol content is 10%, well, you never keep this table like this, but when it's 10%, it'll be 1.2. So it's going to be kind of mostly this, and then 20% of this. And that's kind of how one little process goes for configuring fuel table controls. But we could be on this for days, and that's just the most basic configuration. And then one thing about this ECU, which is absolutely incredible, is you can go through and do much more chassis design stuff. So beyond like your engine controls, you have vehicle functions. This could be torque-based model, transmission slip, clutch slip. You can go through gear management when it comes to like auto blipping a manual transmission based on clutch and brake, based on estimated horsepower loss on the engine, which is really cool. Again, it has an accelerometer in it, so it'll measure G-forces, so you can use that G-force sensor for other things, for controls. Alternator control, turbo scavenging pump, closed loop stepper control, like I can do an OMP for Rotary right there. Flame control, so I mentioned that one of the last videos. Rolling anti-lag, launch control, like all these are chassis related. A bunch of different timers if you want to do like a drag racing setup and you delay in a nitrous setup, perfect for that. And then you've got all these user controls, perfectly programmable. There's nothing you can't do. And you could stack these on top of each other. So if you had a function, your axis could be function 1 versus function 2. And then that output could do another function 3, function 4. And all these things could be stacked on top of each other. So if you can think up a process you can program it. I can't think of any other software that allows you to do that. And then you can see like calculated runtime. So this is how the engine operates and how to optimize a particular setup. So map is pretty much how the majority of like a standard EFI tuning will be. TPS is going to be alpha N. BAP is atmospheric pressure only. This is MAP versus BAP, which is you're changing your fueling based on altitude, and this ECU has an integrated altitude sensor. Same thing with MAP versus EMAP. Now you're doing it back pressure of the engine to compensate fueling. So you could do like number 4 here. It's MAP based, and then you have a BAP offset, or you do MAP versus BAP, and then have an EMAP offset. I could show you guys all that. It's just digging through it would take ages. Then you have like air mass stuff. This is what OEMs are doing. This is what Cobb does. This is what anything that is a modern ECU is measuring all air mass. And you can do that by modeling the map. So you can have a air temp, a pre-throttle body map sensor, and a post-throttle body, aka plenum map sensor. And between those 3 sensors, it uses the Navier-Stokes equation to calculate an estimated airflow through the engine, because you have a pressure differential and a temperature of the air. And between those 2 parameters and 3 sensors, you get a proper way of calculating airflow. And you can model that on everything, which is just incredible. So that's how you get engine response that's ungodly on some of these applications. And it's just because it's imagining a mass airflow sensor with 0 restriction. That's it. I can't think of a better system than that. So there's a little bit of scaling involved, but it's super impressive. And then you go back to this and you're like, shit, well, it's so basic. You can set this whole thing up in 3 minutes and go fart around town and it works and it's okay. But you go into some altitude and you go into some like real driving conditions and you're going to find faults. You're going to find stuff that's just like stupid. And then even looking at the base map that they had, this wouldn't make any sense. Like, you go and smack the throttle, you've got a bunch of fuel here, then it tapers away to nothing. And then you've got a bunch of fuel here, then it tapers away to nothing, and then it goes up to this, which will never run, 14,500 RPM. For a base map, this is really almost pathetic. So, I don't know. I figured you guys would want to see a little bit of that. It's just a completely different world. And if you're able to see it as it is, if you're able to do this sort of analysis to where you can say, like, my money is worth this, my investment for this car is worth this, then you can start understanding why I am very critical when it comes to pushing technology, educating my clients, and making sure that people are informed on their decision. I'm not some like fad chasing idiot. I'm the guy who goes and challenges people and says, okay, you said this can work, show me. And I'm the one who tests stuff out. I'm the one who's straight up telling people to their face that they are lying to people about sales and shit. Why? There's no reason. It's better just to show data. Approach this stuff with an open mind, and hopefully try out some of the softwares and stuff before you go and decide an ECU. I don't care who you use for tuner. I don't care who you use for purchasing stuff, but like, don't be a fool. There's no reason for it. The internet is the most powerful tool known to man. Do some research and don't be a lazy shit. So anyways, that's my 4th PSA this week, so I need to get back on this. Here's an example. You could set up fuel pump tables based on speed and turn off times and injector duty cycle. This is stuff that's proper motorsports, right? I want to get people thinking this way so that there's no wool pulled over your eyes and you're not lying to yourself about this is the best, blah, blah, blah. There are so many other layers of greatness out there, and I wish that you can see what I see and do what I do, and I want this to be educational and informative. So we'll call it for there. That was 25 minutes, and I apologize for a bit of repetitiveness, but that's Imtron, and that's me who got owned. I got banned for actually helping someone fix their Haltech map, which is hilarious. I was like, yeah, it's okay. You can either email me or whatever. Here's the problem with your previous tuner, and I went through the whole steps, and I showed screenshots. I'm like, this is not going to work. And it was very rudimentary, very basic stuff, and sure as shit, I'm almost positive that motor blew up right after. I didn't get to tune it, didn't get to save it, so hey, if you got paid for all the cars that you saved money for saving people's asses on, you'd be a rich person. I'll tell you that right now. But when they don't listen, yeah, that's not on me, man. I tried. Your fuel system, no fuel filter, no fuel pressure sensor, not on me. I told you there's rust. All right, y'all take care now.